Ah! What's up everyone, I'm the CloakingDonkey and welcome back to Camelot Unchained Examined. Let's talk about housing. So housing in a lot of other MMORPGs is really just a glorified Sims game where you build a nice white picket fence house and then you decorate it and then you look at it because isn't that gorgeous what I created? And I'm not trying to slag off this mechanic, having something that is fun for creative people is obviously a good thing, right? I mean, I am a creative person myself, so I usually enjoy doing something with the housing system, building something interesting, and all that sort of stuff. So a cool housing system is something that can absolutely catch my attention. But for Camelot Unchained, the housing system is going to be quite different, in that it is an integral part to the gameplay. And the way you should think about housing in Camelot Unchained is kind of like a survival game like DayZ meets Minecraft meets an MMORPG. Meaning, to build a house, you go out and you collect a bunch of resources, and then you use those resources to actually construct a building. And you can build it most everywhere in the world. However, they did say that houses and anything that you can build is usually built around claims. And a claim will cost probably a certain amount of in-game currency or something along those lines. And then you can build whatever you want around that claim. And I'm not sure exactly if those claims are going to be able to be placed anywhere or if they have certain nodes where they can be placed. That remains to be seen. However, it does mean that there is going to be a lot of freedom in where you really want to place your buildings. And you can of course not just build houses, you can build pretty much whatever you want. However, they also said they don't want it to turn into, Minecraft where people build giant Star Trek spaceships and that sort of thing. So everything has to still fit within the perceived lore of the game. So it has to be kind of, medieval fantasy fitting in terms of what you are going to build. But you can build all sorts of things. Castles, keeps, forts, cities, mining villages, and whatever else you can think of really that is going to make for interesting gameplay. If it's a giant statue of Arthur, I'm sure the developers aren't gonna bemoan your creativity. And the housing system also plays really heavily into how the map meta gameplay and map control is going to work. I'm gonna have a separate video where I will talk about the map and land masses and all that sort of stuff. But let's just say a big part of the meta gameplay will be capturing territory. And you will capture territory by taking over, let's call them spires, right? They are important locations. And when you take this important location for your realm, it will change the area to belong to your realm. And this is also how land masses will merge into larger land masses, as most of the world is islands. But again, we will get to that in another video. Now the housing system is basically how you can protect these spires. So you can build castles to ward off choke points, or you can build a keep around a spire. Perhaps, I'm not sure, this is obviously a balance thing. Maybe we won't be able to build anything around a spire, but that sort of thing, right? You're going to be able to protect these spires with other buildings. And then you can build cities and villages out in the world as well, and having that is obviously the benefit of having all your stuff closer to where the rarest resources on the map are going to be. The rarer the resource, the further in the middle they are going to be, of course. So if you can build a city or a village or an outpost close to them, it's going to give you the ability to harvest things and then bring it back to safety, whereas, safety is relatively close. Now I said safety, but really, buildings in Camelot Unchained aren't going to be necessarily safe. If you build them out in the world, enemies can come and they can capture your house, or they can burn it down even if they want to. Now we definitely know that burning down or razing houses and cities and castles isn't supposed to be a very easy thing. It's supposed to be rather time consuming and a little bit difficult to do in terms of the resources, whatever they be, that you have to invest into them, because obviously we don't want everybody to just go around and raze each other's property the entire time, because that would make housing simply tedious. And we don't want it to be tedious, we want it to be fun and engaging. But for it to be fun and engaging, there has to be, of course, an element of risk. And the risk is, of course, somebody could come by and take it from you or raze it to the ground. Now, building cities out in the world also, of course, offers the option to have better supply lines and infrastructure. If you want to attack a castle or a city, you will want to bring siege equipment, and obviously you have to build that somewhere, as we talked about last video. So if you build your siege equipment in your city, it obviously makes sense that you would want your city to be as close as possible, so you don't have to lug all the stuff you just made across the entire map. So that is another incentive of having your city closer to the enemy than having it really far in the back, close to your safe zones. But, of course, having it very far back, close to your safe zones, has its own advantages in that it is a much safer location to build a city. And with all of this talk about cities and castles, you already probably figured out that a lot of this is also going to tie heavily into the meta game between different guilds. If you're a guildless player, of course you're not going to be that interested in building giant cities, although I'm sure you're probably going to be able to help building a city anyway and living in one if you can find a guild that is looking for, more people to live in the city. I'm sure that sort of stuff is going to exist because there's probably going to be some sort of benefit to it, even if it's just strength and numbers. Now, the Minecraft part of the system comes in the construction of buildings, because buildings are constructed block by block, just like they would be in Minecraft, only that the blocks in Camelot Unchained are a little bit more complex, and you can do more different things with the blocks in this game. Now, obviously, with houses and castles being able to be burned to the ground, you don't want to have to build your new house from scratch every single time. So there is also an option to turn a house into a blueprint, so that next time you can just plop down the blueprint and then it'll tell you exactly what resources you need and you just bring them and pop, and it's a much easier construction than it would be without a blueprint. This is basically also what the Cube program is for. Maybe you've already seen screenshots of it on the website and in these videos, because I use them frequently as well. There is a secondary program to Camelot Unchained that is called Cube, in which you can go around and build houses out of blocks, or build whatever you want out of blocks. Now, I'm just going to say, if you're a beta backer or an alpha backer or anything like that, you can already access Cube through the Camelot Unchained launcher and play around and build buildings and all this sort of thing. And I'm sure Cube in the future is also going to be able to be used to make blueprints there, so you don't actually have to build a house live on the live servers brick by brick. If you don't want to, you probably can do that in Cube, get the blueprint, and then somehow have the blueprint in the game. Now, I'm not sure if this is a feature. It was probably answered in some Q&A somewhere, but there are so many Q&As at this point that I have real problems finding everything. But I do think that you're also going to be able to make blueprints in Cube and then get them in the game, so that you don't have to actually build houses from scratch if you don't want to. And you will probably also be able to sell blueprints for houses or towers or wall sections to other players if your blueprints happen to be really successful. If buildings are damaged through siege engines or something along those lines, but they are not entirely destroyed, they can also be repaired with help of a blueprint. So if you have a blueprint of that house, you can just apply the repair, and then it will be much cheaper in resources to get the house into shipshape again. Alright, I think that is pretty much everything about the housing system that we know so far, but regardless of the details, there is so much possibility here with this system. The prospect of the Camelot Unchained housing system is absolutely enormous. And if it makes it into the game at even 50% of the scope they set out, then it is going to be a massive part of the actual gameplay. And I'm pretty sure all you crafting inclined folks are going to be very happy with an actual complex building and housing system that lets you do all of this creative stuff. But until then, I've been the CloakingDonkey, and I'll see you in another video.